A championship opening weekend with drama, heaped on controversy, heaped on moments of magic, heaped on intriguing, dynamic, tactical battles, and kicking off our recap. For the first time this Sky Bet Championship season, we're going to start with the Sky Bet Surprise, which is a new weekly feature on the Monday pod this season, and it is highlighting the biggest against the odds winner of the EFL weekend. George, it could be in any league. This week it's in the Championship, and we'll be analysing the anatomy of the victory. Who's up this week?
Sky Bet Surprise this week is Bristol City with their 4-1 win away at Sheffield United at the price 4-1. 4-1. 4-1. Biggest price winners of the weekend. Not a massive surprise, but the manner of the victory and the scoreline probably not to have been expected.
Just landing haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. It was built on counter-attacks and quick attacks from turnovers, right? So the first goal, Hirakawa playing in this sort of left wing-back role, gets on the ball and drives, carries it, draws defenders to him, releases it at the perfect time to start a good attack for Bristol City. It ends up with Anis Mehmeti being brought down, winning a free kick, and Scott Twine steps over it. And there was about a minute between the awarding of the free kick and Twine just posting it in the top corner in the way that seemingly only he can. And I just spent that whole minute feeling such anticipation for Twine's first free kick of the season. And how often in life, George, is anticipation for a great event not matched by the event itself? I loved it so much. Twine into the top corner, almost doing his ACL with a knee slide on a dry pitch. Cooper didn't even move. Just watch it in.
I think I've said this before, but Twine seems to have an ability that I can't think of other free kick takers where consistently his free kicks seem to be like unsavable. And I don't mean that in the sense they go so far in the corner that the keeper can't get there. I mean, the ball never seems to be in the orbit of the goalkeeper. Like, it's bizarre. I don't understand how he does it. The trajectory, the way that they dip in just means that as a keeper, I think it's not about finding the corners. It's about not being able to get anywhere near the ball on its route to the goal.
Yeah, it's astounding. And his 17 free kick goals, direct free kick goals since the start of his career in the EFL in 2020 is more than I can find anyone else having scored in any league anywhere in the world in that time. So I'm saying Scott Twine, the best free kick taker on the planet, and I'll leave it up to you guys to prove me wrong somehow. Nice response, to be fair, from Sheffield United with a quick attack of their own. O'Hare, sort of peak O'Hare this. He won it back, he carried it forward, and then just as he had dragged a couple of defenders to him, slipped it in to Tyrese Campbell to finish and get off the mark for the season. But then more Bristol City counterattacks. Mehmeti on the left, really nice movement from the debutant Emil Rees. He kind of faked short, which drew Bindon forward, and then he sprung in behind. Great pass from Mehmeti. Rees outpaces Bindon to get there, passes it across to Twine, who takes his time, realises that Ross McCrory is galloping. And that's what Ross McCrory does. Outside him, lays it off into his shooting stride and a laser into the far corner. Such a great first half. And you think Sheffield United are going to come on strong here. 38 seconds into the second half, 3-1. Bad pass from Norrington Davis. It went to Rees. He found Twine, back to Rees. And then a cut back to Mehmeti to finish and get in on the act. And the fourth, not long after, Norrington Davis with a bad pass. McCrory on the ball this time, finding Scott Twine, whose shot was deflected in. So this was an attacking unit just doing so much to turn counterattacks and turnovers into goals, basically. Whether it was the wing-backs Hirakawa and McCrory or the attackers, Rees at the top with Twine and Mehmeti kind of dovetailing behind and outside him. And Struber, to be fair to him, as buzzing as he was, and he loves to use the phrase sexy to describe things that he likes, so he enjoyed this. It was a sexy performance, sexy football from Bristol City, but he did acknowledge that this was built on exceptional finishing, right? They scored 4 of their first 6 shots to go 4-1 up here. And at the other end, Sheffield United had 20 shots total here, which I think reflects the fact that Vitek, making his debut in goal on loan from Manchester United, had to make some big saves and did so. But Rob Atkinson needs mentioning here as well. So impressive, playing his first Bristol City game in 2.5 years, can you believe, after a lengthy time out with injury and then that really positive loan with Portsmouth. Twine just grew in confidence after scoring that free kick. Didn't have the easiest season last season, but with these free kick goals and with encouragingly, some more good play outside of set-piece situations. He looks like he could be very well suited to Struberball and Emil Rees. The perfect game for him, this, really. He is a tall striker who doesn't really want to be a central target man, focal point. He wants to sprint in behind, particularly down the channels where he can get on the ball without a big meaty centre-back hurting him, basically. He's a runner, he's a drifter, he's a stretcher, and he's perfect for this game plan and had a really, really good debut. So what a start for Gerhard Struber's Cider Army. Sexy football and winning the first Sky Bet Surprise Feature of the Week in the Sky Bet Championship this season. So what an opening day for those Bristol City fans, George, banishing the memory of that 6-0 playoff semi-final defeat on aggregate to Sheffield United just a couple of months ago. For Sheffield United, the new era for Ruben Sayes could barely have started any worse.
Yeah, just say no. This is... there are two ways to think about this. Firstly, there's the obvious one, which is this is an absolute disaster. To lose 4-1 at home in the first game of the season, to be carved open the way that they were, to look so poor at the back. Yes, of course, in terms of personnel, it's not a massive surprise. Reece Norrington-Davies having to start centre-back is not ideal. With Tyler Bindon having to make a step up and having clearly a very difficult debut. And the narrative around this, where I almost think the worst game they possibly could have had to start the season was home to Bristol City, because we saw Chris Wilder's Sheffield United, with the help of a red card, but beat Bristol City by a record goal tally on aggregate in a playoff over 2 legs. So the expectation and the precedent is already set. And, to be undone the way that they were, given what's at stake here, and given that a lot of Sheffield United fans that went to Bramall Lane on Saturday, not only sceptical about the new manager, it feels like because Sayes, having been sacked from Hull and having never managed a club trying to get out of the Championship before, was met probably with less excitement around the appointment than normally a new manager is, but also because of Chris Wilder and the fact that he's replaced a man that most Sheffield United fans would have liked to have managed Sheffield United for as long as possible, who's achieved incredible success there and who came so close to taking them to the Premier League last time they took to a football pitch. All of that stuff is disastrous. And then there is the kind of ridiculous variance nature of this result, where obviously watching the game live, it was pretty clear, the threat that Bristol City offered in transition was obviously clear to anyone watching. But there are also some really nice parts to Bristol City's performance. The goal itself from Campbell was very, very good, really well worked. They were good in possession for the most part as well, dominated the ball in possession, created some decent chances and some good openings. But last season, and we spoke about this a lot on the pod, Sheffield United's success came in part thanks to a remarkably bad stretch of finishing from their opponents, coupled with the incredible form of Mike Cooper. And that was probably the driving force for their incredible form until the last 5 or 6 games of the season, where it kind of came back to bite them to an extent. So for Ruben Sayes' Sheffield United side to concede 4 of their first 5 shots on target, one of which was a shot that Cooper possibly should have saved, got a big kind of leg on, if that's a thing you could say. And it just shows that sometimes, was the performance that much worse? Yes, probably because of reasons we can understand with personnel and players leaving. And I think the loss of Vinicius was obviously very clear as well in the way that Bristol City were able to get in behind and get through to the defensive line so easily when they did attack and transition. But it's also just one of those things where I think it's a cocktail of things that have emerged to just provide the worst possible outcome. And now it feels like Ruben Sayes and the Sheffield United owners come under immense pressure off the back of just one result. And when you look at the team and the personnel, it doesn't feel like there are a whole host of players coming in before the next game. So,
strongest defensive players for Sheffield United last season, if you take out Mike Cooper's stellar performances in goal, were Anel Ahmedhodzic,
gone,
Jack Robinson, apparently
possibly going,
and Vinicius Souza in front of them breaking up play. This was a a back line of Sariki, Bindon, Norrington Davis and Burrows without Sousa in front, with Peck playing as the most defensive midfielder, and with basically Callum O'Hare and Gus Harmer as the eights. Like, it was a very attack-minded on paper midfield.
And I think there was promise in possession. Like, I think they looked lively going forward. It could work, and I don't think they're going to be undone as easily as Bristol City did. I think in a way the way that Struble set them up and the way they attacked last season meant it was a bit of a nightmare for them stylistically. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously when you look at the team, it's not hard to see why they were carved open so easily.
Yeah, so Norwich hosted Millwall winning by 2-1. This is the first time they'd won at Carrow Road in 56 years. And I love the idea, and I'm also confident that this will be true, that there will have been a Millwall fan in that away end who may well have seen them win in 1968 at Carrow Road, and 56 years later and 20-something matches later has just seen them win, and deservedly so as well. Like, this wasn't that smashy and grabby as you might expect. Yeah, in the first half, Norwich had most of the ball, most of the territory, and Millwall didn't do a huge amount going forward, but neither were they particularly flustered. I think that Liam Manning's Norwich are going to look very different to Johannes Hoff-Torup's at Norwich City. And I think, certainly to start the season, opposition teams will give them the ball and dare them to break them down, because that is something that, for all his quality and good results as a manager across a few different clubs, I would say Manning's clubs, Bristol City, Oxford, to a lesser extent MK, albeit at a lower level, have struggled to break down deep blocks with kind of impressive attacking combination play. So that's going to be the challenge for Norwich. And in the second half, Millwall just came out jabbing, basically. I switched over to this game in time to see the replay of their first goal, and it was basically the 4-4-2 dream goal. It's great that 4-4-2 is having a comeback. Alex Neil has built a really fun 4-4-2, and it was a flick on from Coburn to Ivanovic, the two strikers. It was Ivanovic controlling and spraying it out wide to the galloping right back Kramer, and it was him crossing and finished by the left winger, Negley. Really, really good goal. Norwich equalised very quickly through just a charge down from Josh Sargent, who looked, I must say, in fine fettle. And Stephen Bender just spending a bit too long on the ball. And also, like, when you're a keeper and you're being closed down, like, it feels like most of them think about that as to where they actually aim the ball as well, and maybe send it wide, even if it goes out of play, that's fine. He didn't change where he was originally going to kick that ball. He just hit it down the middle, which made it, well, it was just a bad bit of goalkeeping, and Sargent benefiting with a goal. But Millwall won it, and I think they really deserved it. They'd already had a really good chance through Aziz. This goal was new signing Alfie Doughty, playing a nice through ball to a substitute Macaulay Langstaff, showing good pace and a good finish as well. So, this result and performance doing little to keep Millwall off the dark horse radar, I think it's fair to say. And it is funny, a bit like, who's the classic major tournament dark horses? Serbia. Millwall are like the Serbia of the Championship this season, where everyone seems to be going like, not many people will agree with this, but I'm thinking Millwall might be quite good this season and could challenge the playoffs.
Including us.
As if the team that finished 8th last season could be, under the radar particularly. And just from a Norwich point of view, we're not drawing conclusions. We're certainly not getting itchy trigger fingers on this pod after one game. But tactics-wise, it was 3 centre-backs with Medic, Darling and Cordoba. It was wing-backs in the form of Schlupp on the left and Stacey on the right. Wright and Topic in midfield, who are both kind of deep midfield operators from what I know of Topic anyway. And then Sonats and Forson kind of behind and to the side of Sargent as the number 9. And it's not the sexiest or most exciting attacking selection or team shape, and I kind of feel like if your 5 most attacking players are Sargent, Cernats, Forson, Schlupp and Stacey, basically the wing-backs, you're putting a lot of pressure on Josh Sargent, the best striker in the league, I think. But maybe it's not the worst thing if first and foremost Manning wants to make them more solid out of possession. Clearly they conceded 2 here, it doesn't look great, but that wouldn't be the worst thing to focus on first and foremost. We know they've got a lot of attacking personnel, a lot of them unproven, a lot of them young, but hopefully some of them very exciting and will sort of develop through the course of the season, like Jurasek, who they signed in January. That could be Makama, who they signed recently. consistently. A couple of players off the bench here as well. But not a great start to the season, I think it's fair to say, for Norwich and for Liam Manning, losing at home to Millwall. Let's chat through the 3 relegated teams from the Premier League, George, and in doing so, we'll touch on Wrexham and Birmingham as well, who were 2 of the opponents for these 3. Southampton 2, Wrexham 1, first and foremost. 2 injury time goals for a turnaround win for Will Still.
Yeah, an incredible way for Still to start his Southampton tenure. Dramatic circumstances, and looking at who deserved this game and who didn't. This is one where you might look at the numbers and the stats and you think, yeah, kind of Saints got what they deserve. But I'd say watching it told a pretty different story. 27 shots Southampton had, 4.14 XG according to FotMob.
Wow.
To 10 shots from Wrexham, 1.88 XG. Although, having watched this, it felt like there were a few opportunities where Wrexham could have finished this game having gone 1-0 up. And when they went 1-0 up, it was totally and utterly deserved. Wrexham, by far the better team in the first 20 minutes or so, looked really, really sharp on the counter. Southampton had a couple of chances themselves. It wasn't one-way traffic by any stretch, but it kind of felt like Wrexham were the likelier team to win it. Windass had a good shot that cannoned off the crossbar before he was the one to to score the penalty after Kiefer Moore was fouled. Remarkable decision not to send Ronnie Edwards off for this. Like, bizarre. Moore through 1-on-1, Edwards running behind, Stevens coming in from the side. And I have to assume that Stevens' presence was what led to no red card, because it's a push in the back from Edwards. There's obviously no intention whatsoever to play the ball. But I don't understand what Stevens doing there means, because
there's nothing in the laws of the game about covering defenders.
This is
it's
complete
a clear
misconception.
Goal-scoring opportunity, which it clearly
even
is.
if Moore gets his shot away and Stevens makes a block, he's still taking a goal-scoring opportunity. That's like suggesting that a goalkeeper being in the goal and making a save could deny a kick, or that's not how it works. So Saints got very lucky there. Wrexham, they didn't have any of the ball in the second half, but again looked a threat on the counter, with Ryan Hardy going closest off the bench to make it 2-0. Frustration for Wrexham as well that Kiefer Moore came off with an injury that doesn't look great. Given how lively he looked like a very good fit.
Him and Windass combining very nicely, given it was their first time on a pitch together.
And even though Saints had a really good spell at the end of the first half and had a lot of the ball in the second half and did create a few chances, it kind of felt like the game had gone before Ryan Manning off the bench with a just ridiculously good free kick. We've been treated some unbelievable free kicks already this season, and this was another one, bending in the top right hand corner with his left foot. And then the goal itself, the winner that came 6 minutes into injury time, with Manning down the left, crossing for new signing Damien Downs, who kind of made a mess with his feet and couldn't quite get a shot off, but diverted it into the path of Jack Stevens, who rifled it in from kind of the goal line off the underside of the crossbar, causing absolute pandemonium, and great scenes from Will Still, who was very animated on the touchline too. So, yeah, I mean, it's for Wrexham, like a really good performance, especially at 0-0, showing that they can go toe to toe with a good team at this level, but undone with 2 injury time goals and losing their star new signing. It's hard to get away from the fact that this was valiant in defeat, but like a terrible, terrible day at the office in the end. Yeah,
shout out Gavin Bazunu. You mentioned Hardy's chance, which should have or could have won it for Wrexham, could have put them 2-0 up. Very well saved by Bazunu. Bit of a weird Saints team on paper. We often get this early on in the season for these relegated teams where no one's quite sure who's staying and who's going. Like Matias Fernandez started on the bench and then came off the bench and looked absolutely incredible, unsurprisingly. But again, the fact that Still played 3 centre-backs and wing-backs really surprised me here. I don't know if it was a kind of reactive selection or team shape because of Wrexham's height and heft and directness of their style. Would be a surprise to me if that's the way he's approaching that sort of game. But these modern coaches are very reactive and pragmatic. They like making tactical selections kind of based on the opposition and on making sure that they're first and foremost ready for the opposition's threats. And that has been a bit of a shift, because previously it was more like we'll impose our philosophy and you'll bend to our will. I do feel like that's changed a little bit with quite a lot of modern managers. But it did mean that they just spent a lot of time with Wrexham happily funneling the ball out wide, and then the wing-backs crossing it and aiming it towards Adam Armstrong, Ryan Fraser, and an 18-year-old called Robinson, who, in fairness, looked pretty lively. So yeah, a bit of a strange starting 11, but the second half changes, I think, reflected that there's plenty of very good players here, and the team, I'm sure we'll say this about a lot of teams, particularly the relegated ones, will look very different in 4 weeks' time. Leicester beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-1 on Sunday. Now, this one was really important for Wednesday fans. They made an excellent, very sort of visible protest against their owner, Dejphon Chanziri, demanding that he sell the club so that this current concerning situation comes to an end as soon as possible, so that they can look forward rather than worry about the future. The fans didn't go into the stands to watch the game to start with until the 5th minute, when they flooded out into the stands, given an ovation by Leicester City fans, which was a really nice touch as well. And I thought it was a very creative, not the sort of protest that we've seen other clubs do before, but I think it worked very, very well for a televised game, and was shown extensively as well on the broadcast. So the point very much made. What about this Wednesday team? Because there's been so much reporting about what a mess that they are in, how many players have left, and what about those who are still there? Well, essentially, based on who was available for this game, Wednesday have 10 senior players. So there's 8 of them that started this game, and then there were 3 20-year-olds in the team. Piers Charles in goal, Gabriel Otegbayo at centre-back, and Bailey Cadamartri starting up top. They have Kubatski and Ugbo on the bench, who are 24 and 26, senior professionals. And then Fuzire and McNeil came off the bench at 20 and 21. The rest of the bench, 19 and 20-year-olds, kind of Sheffield Wednesday under-21 players with very little first-team experience. So that's what Henrik Pedersen is up against. And you know what? They started so strong, kind of raiding forward when they could, winning set pieces, getting shots off, playing with a lot of energy as well, going ahead through Nathaniel Chalobah, who'd already hit the post at the point where he scored, and just very, very impressive. But I think we saw the reality of the situation that they are in with the players that they have available, because after the goal, 1-0 up at Leicester, 23 shots to 2 from that point. It was pure domination, really, from Leicester City. And I don't think they played that well as a unit, Leicester. But you've got Fatawi off the right, Mavididi off the left, Bilal El Kanous behind the striker. It's a pretty scary trio of players. And although none of them scored this time, we saw enough from all 3 of them that in terms of their individual attacking ability, that they're going to be a constant threat, basically. Winks came off the bench and made a nice midfield too with Soumare. And despite all of that, it took 2 set-piece goals from their centre-backs, Vestergaard and Fass, to win this game. So overall, not a very impressive performance from Leicester, not a great atmosphere in the ground, and not a great vibe when Wout Fass spent his celebration telling Leicester City fans to shut up. So despite the win, I think not hugely convinced by the performance or the state of the team at the moment. Piers Charles deserves a mention in the Sheffield Wednesday goal. 11 saves, as well as the 2 goals that he conceded. Many of them very, very smart saves as well. And his brother Shay Charles was in the stands supporting him and his former club Wednesday as well. Just in terms of off-the-pitch stuff, George, in the last week or so, I don't want to say good news really with Sheffield Wednesday. It doesn't really feel like that at the moment in the big picture, but in terms of embargoes, one of them was lifted.
Yeah, so the kind of blanket embargo has been lifted. So now it's just they can't pay any fees, whether that is loan fees or transfer fees, which means they're now able to recruit, and that's because unpaid debts to players and staff have been paid seemingly off the back of the Premier League solidarity payment. Mm-hmm. So that's something. I mean, it's because it's off the back of the solidarity payment. It doesn't really suggest there's any reason for
optimism.
Well, I mean, there's other news. Like this morning, it's been reported by Matt Hughes in The Guardian and others that the man who cannot get his name out of the headlines in English football at the moment, John Textor, who you may also see starring in the Crystal Palace story at the moment around their qualification for Europe. He has seemingly, Matt Hughes says that he's teamed up with football financier Keith Harris in an attempt to buy Sheffield Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So that is news in that it's, feasibly a genuine buyer who may be some way down the line to buying Wednesday and saving them. And that has to be good news. In the short term, I was one of those that I've spent the last few weeks assuming that the team that Wednesday put out on Sunday was going to be a team of kids with 1 or 2 recognisable faces. I've spent most of the summer as an Oxford fan just assuming that Sheffield Wednesday were destined for the drop regardless of what happened because of the job that they have in order to build a squad. So when the team came out on Sunday, I was a bit like, it's all right. Like, I mean, it's not a great side, but you've got Chalobah midfield with Bannon. You've got Lowe up front. You've got, in terms of defenders, Iorfa, Max Lowe, Liam Palmer, Jan Valery. Charles, who you said in goal, is obviously a very, very good young keeper who kept Beadle out the back end of last season. Like, there's enough there. Ingleson in kind of the more attack midfield role. There's enough there that it probably doesn't take that much in terms of new additions. And if there is a way that Wednesday can get this sale through and also bring in the requisite players you'd assume will be loans and free transfers, albeit I still just find it very strange, the idea that, you know, a club would be negotiating with Wednesday around loans right now, given they've had such difficulty paying staff and players as of late. But hopefully, you know, it's the 11th of August now, the window closes in 19 days. If there is a world where Textor or someone else can manage to force a sale through alongside players coming in the door, then, you know, Wednesday could be looking at a better immediate future as well as long-term future. The issue is obviously Transiri, and the issue is obviously that there is just no evidence whatsoever that he is actually willing to sell the club, at least at a decent valuation or a fair valuation, where for some reason he seems to think that Sheffield Wednesday is worth about the same as Manchester United. So that is clearly still the issue. But I don't know, I guess on and off the pitch in the last 2 or 3 days, at a time where you have to clutch at any straw you can get your hands on, at least we've been given a couple of straws. Yeah,
and of course, when it comes to Leicester, again, the potential for a points deduction is still sort of hanging over them. There's so little concrete info on when that might happen. I keep trying to find out when we might know. And actually, a few people, albeit unverified sources, and certainly not proper journos, suggesting that it could be this week that at least we move forward and understand what might happen. TBC on that. And then Birmingham 1, Ipswich 1. George got the season started on Friday night. It was just a hell of a game. Very, very dramatic. And with that late equalising penalty from George Hurst after Jay Stansfield had put Blues ahead.
Yeah, someone who wanted to see it before I believed it with Birmingham in the Championship, and who was pretty bullish that Ipswich should be the best team in the league, or at least one of them. It wasn't the case at all on Friday night. I mean, there's obviously time for that to change, but Birmingham were by far the better team. Looked really, really good in possession, looked well drilled. The new signings that did play settled in pretty well, but for the most part, Chris Davis chose more of a kind of continuity lineup. Kyogo looked incredibly lively, scored one disallowed goal with a brilliant finish that, you know, I think it's one of those where if you don't have like BCFC in your username on Twitter, then you probably thought it was the correct decision. If you didn't, then you thought it was a joke. Kyogo very clearly jumping into Greaves, wasn't it? And without any real intention to play the ball, leading to the disallowed goal. The scandalous decision came, although I should say this finish from Stansfield after Kyogo with another incredible lob hit the woodwork and rebounded him. Stansfield kept his composure really well and fired into the roof of the net for his first goal back in the Championship with Birmingham. But Birmingham were by far the better side, and for Ipswich to get anything out of this game was totally undeserved. Like, they were ragged throughout. There was no cohesion at all in the way that they looked to build up. They couldn't really retain the ball. There were some flashes of decent individual performances at times, but not really. And the goal itself came from a handball, where I don't know. It just seems to me that we've created this idea now where if a ball strikes a hand and it isn't a player's side, then it has to be a penalty. And Lyndon Dykes jumps, I think he's like pretty out of control because it's fairly congested in there. I would argue there's more of a case to say that Dykes himself is pulled as he jumps by the hand and therefore has maybe fouled himself, but I'm happy to kind of let that go. But the header across that strikes his arm is going nowhere near the goal. As we always say, I don't understand why we expect players to jump with their hands like down by their side. There has to be an element where you're able to use your hands to propel yourself into the air without being in danger of a handball if the ball strikes it from point blank range. But the ref gives a penalty, and there were other handballs across the EFL over the weekend that looked to me like there were more handballs that weren't given. I just think the whole rule is a bit of a shambles at the moment. and it's kind of impossible for there to be consistency, which I think as a fan is all you really want there to be because it's so subjective. But George Hurst puts away the penalty. It's a massive lucky escape for Ipswich Town. Huge wake-up call, I would say, and kind of laid bare just how desperate they are for players to have come in. Kajus came in obviously just before the game, wasn't ready to take part. Chuba Akpom, who was seemingly on his way to Birmingham, is also in the door, and I expect we'll see others come in soon after. And I think Ipswich will look very different in time, and I'm sure Kieran McKenna, as we always say, would have learnt a lot from seeing that as to where they are. But Birmingham, massive upgrade in my mind in that performance because they deserve the 3 points.
You know who I think is absolutely astounding? Paik Sung-ho in midfield for Birmingham. I guess it was because, it's not like I didn't see him play last season. I guess it was because he was playing in the Championship against the team that we think should be challenging for the title. But the appreciation of that performance and just his all-round game was, wow, incredible, really. And you know what? Ipswich could really do with someone like that next to Matasiwa. I know they've got Kajus to come in. I'm a little uneasy about him and Matasiwa as a pairing, but that's, I will admit I haven't seen loads of either of them, so I could be wrong there. But I just want a slightly more dependable on-ball operator to play for Ipswich, because I think that was part of the reason they didn't look very cohesive, because they didn't have that sort of glue in midfield that they had with Morsey and Luongo in particular 2 years ago. So that's three teams coming down, George, who are, if it wasn't for Leicester's points deduction, they probably would be the three favourites for the title. As it was, Leicester weren't the third favourite. In fact, I think Birmingham were. But it's the three coming down, not looking great, particularly at 0-0. I think it's fair to say that all three of Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton were the inferior team in their matches. Now, there's a few ways of looking at that. I think it's great for the league. It makes me very, very encouraged for the league. Mm-hmm. But then the cynic in me sort of thinks, but recent history suggests that these teams often give the league a bit of a 4-week head start and still often get 90 plus points. We'll have to wait and see there. Elsewhere, Stoke beat Derby 3-1. They almost got John Eustace, but they managed to avoid getting John Eustace. By that, I mean, in the first half, 8 shots to 0 in Stoke's favour, but mostly Derby getting bodies in front of the shooter in the goal, a couple of decent chances, one header from Yunho Bay that went wide. And then as the game went on and Stoke didn't score, sucker punched on the hour. Blackett-Taylor with a big carry down the left, cross in, great first time finish from Morris. Just felt incredibly Derby from the last few months of last season, really. And they were defending pretty well, Derby, but you can't let Lewis Baker shoot from 20 yards or 30 yards or 70 yards, as we saw last season. He fired home into the corner from range, and then Stoke had the bit between their teeth. A cross from Seko, who played well in midfield, and Divine Mbama on loan from Manchester City, Stoke's new striker, heading home. Something really old school kind of Premier League years from the 90s about that header. It was just the direction of it right into the side netting, right into the corner. The fact that, he got between two defenders, but he showed some strength and some hops as well to get up for it. This is a guy that we've been told looks like a proper prospect. We've seen plenty of those come down and struggle to make an instant impact, particularly as strikers at Championship level. And I don't want to get carried away, but he made me pretty excited.
It's one game and it's important not to get carried away, but I'm here for Stoke this season.
Nice.
I watched this purely from an excitement perspective. Firstly, I think it was quite striking and interesting that this was Divine Mbama's debut for Stoke in his first loan. And he was still on the pitch after 95 minutes. That in itself is pretty rare for a young player and shows, I think, probably the level of trust that Robbins has got in him. And he was taken off after his goal for Robert Bosnick, their new signing, who was only given a minute or so at the end. It's also just Manhoef for the first 75 minutes or so. He was the kind of creative force in the first half and created decent chances at 0-0 within the game. I think he is, as I said, in the under 24s, he's 23 now. He's had a couple of seasons there. I think he's basically ready to burst. And I think this will be his breakthrough season, or his breakout season. They have Jamie Donnelly, who came off the bench and showed brilliant awareness to square the ball to Thomas for Sorba for the last goal. And Takuti Seko, who came off the bench and put in a brilliant cross for the Mbama header. it's just this like core of young, physical, but like exciting talent with a really nice mesh of physicality and creativity and pace. You know, we've been here before with Stoke, of course. And
just rein it in just a little bit.
And
Let's just rein you in.
Even looking at like Bosun Lawal, who started at centre-back after his injury issues last season. Like Ashley Phillips, who's back there having had a brilliant time last season. Shamado playing as attacking right wing back. It's just a fun young team, obviously with a bit of experience in there with the likes of Baker, Wilmot, Pearce and Cresswell. And then, you know, the best shot stopper in the league in Janssen. Like, will it translate to being a really good side with loads of points? I don't know, but I think we are going to see a lot of very fun games involving Stoke with a lot of fun goals.
Do you think they could be Watford's rival for Vibes FC tag?
Well, I think Watford are the Vibes FC tag if you think, you know, because a lot of unknowns. I think Stoke are the thinking man's Watford.
Okay. Watford, 0 points for them on opening weekend. An injury time winner in front of the covered end at the Valley, scored by Harvey Nibbs, one of Charlton's new signings. A set piece to the back post, knocked down, Nibbs smashing in, big scenes. Both teams probably should have had penalties in this game. I think Watford showed some nice bits, but not a huge amount of kind of final third coherence yet. Perhaps not a huge surprise given the nature of the sort of new signings on that front. Whereas Charlton, again, unsurprisingly, with the same manager as last season and a similar core of players, looking broadly like the unit that I thought they would, particularly at home. But also, maybe more impressively, the new boys played really well in this game. Apter looked lively and basically provided exactly what Thierry Small provided for them last season. Just a little bit of 1v1 relief out on the wing and a direct play gets shots off. Sonny Carey, Dan on NTT20 squad, Charlton fans said Carey was man of the match for him. Possibly the least heralded of all their signings, but started and played really well. Kaminsky was in goal, Bell left centre-back, Kelman up top as well. They had off the bench Leeburn, Nibbs and Olafe. And again, like this is one of the reasons why I feel good about Charlton is they play with such intensity and they have built a squad, particularly at the top of the pitch if everyone's fit, where I think they should be able to maintain that intensity throughout games. And that's where a lot of teams kind of fall down in the last half an hour of games, particularly if they don't have like the talent advantage, which Charlton won't in many games. And yeah, it might be that some defences find it easier to defend against the way that Charlton attack in the Championship than in League One. But I sort of think that like long passes into space on the break with really quick attacking players who are ready for the passes, know where they're going to go, and you kind of have set movements for it. That's not that easy to defend against, even if you're doing a good job for half an hour. There's still one or two that can catch you out, and then you're in trouble. So an encouraging start, by no means dominating, but I think Charlton fans will feel like they did deserve to nick this one in the end. And Watford, yeah, no Jack Vatadze here. I'm not in love with the starting 11 in terms of just balance and kind of, well, individual quality, particularly at the back. But Loser is clearly absolutely massive for them. If he can stay, I think all will be broadly fine. Quite a lot of 1-0s. Let's do Oxford 0, Portsmouth 1.
I was there.
How did it make you feel?
Sad.
Oh. What did you think about Portsmouth, first and foremost?
They were good. I mean, they were the better team. You know, I don't think they were... It wasn't a performance that blew me away by any stretch. I think Segacic, the match winner and the goal scorer, was really bright. It's a brilliant touch and finish from him. After Jamie Cumming had made a save from Colby Bishop 1-on-1, and it kind of diverted to Segacic, but he had a lot to do. Like, fired at him very fast and low, and he managed to both trap the ball and then whip it into the near corner past Elek, who was kind of trying to get back onto the line. I think it's one of those goals where if you see it once, you wouldn't think much of it, and then you kind of watch it again and you notice the quality that went into it. And that was after a couple of pretty bad misses for Pompey. Josh Murphy was out here. We all thought that Colby Bishop was the one who would be missing, but when the team sheet came out, Bishop started and played 90. But Josh Murphy nowhere to be seen, having picked up a knock, we're told, in their last friendly of the season. So Bianchini played left wing and he missed 2. Well, I mean, one, like, relatively difficult header at the back post, which is one of those where I think as a fan you're like, you should do better, but actually they're never easy. But then just a terrible shot, you know, after the ball was played into him by Callum Lang, and he basically passed it to Jamie Cumming. You know, for Oxford fans last season, you know, the issues from an attacking perspective, but also the reliance on set pieces wasn't that much of an issue because defensively we were very strong. Whereas, the ease with which Pompey managed to create 2, 3, 4 big chances, albeit the goal was a gift because Brannigan made a pass back to Elek without really looking where he was. That is a concern. From what I would say is that from open play, Oxford, I thought, carried a bit more of a threat than they had at times. I mean, Pompey fans seem to disagree a lot with a lot of kind of accusations of long throw merchants and everything else. Oxford's best chance did come from a long throw with Schmidt kind of dropping it to Elliot Moore, who then prodded it straight at Schmidt again. But I thought Stan Mills on the right-hand side looked really lively and the best performance I've seen from him since his serious injury. And if that's going to be his level this season, then Oxford have a serious player there because a proper, direct, old-school winger who just wanted to get on the ball and use his pace and athleticism to get past the fullback, which he did against Ogilvy a lot. And he's got quality in the final third as well. Brodie Spencer was phenomenally good as a one-on-one defender, albeit he'd have had a tougher day at the office had Josh Murphy been playing rather than Bianchini. And then Lancashire looked like an absolute unit up top. He won all of his duels well. He some really good link-up play. Oxford are still crying out for a progressive passer in the middle of the park, albeit De Keersmaker's injury didn't help in that regard with Will Vaulks having to play, having not really had a pre-season. But it looks to me like the signings will make Oxford a more rounded unit from an attacking perspective, albeit they still didn't create loads. They still managed to progress the ball more effectively than they did last season. So frustration for Oxford. Pompey definitely the deserving winners. And I think a few Oxford fans may be surprised why we had them so low in our 124s. But I think this is the wake up call where we are a team who are going to have to find ways to get points out of these kind of games because staying up has to be the aim.
Yeah, I think most of the strong reaction wasn't necessarily huge disagreement with what we said. I think it was just surprise that you were letting your head rule your heart.
Traitor.
You're a big head guy, unfortunately, for those Yellows fans. Another 1-0 game at the Hawthorns. Ryan Mason off to a winning start as a West Bromwich Albion manager. They beat Blackburn by a goal to nil. An early goal, no less, from Isaac Price. Fired home a loose ball after a Darnell Furlong catapult long throw. Still a great threat for them. And you know what? Baggies fans have been telling us for months that Price is going to fly this season. Inflation, I think they call it. And he did look great here. Like, not just the goal, but I thought him and Hegebo, their new striker, both looked pretty bright, pretty industrious, pretty mobile. Both of them had a couple of other chances as well. Fellows had a fairly quiet game on the right, but with those three, Carl and Grant off the left, there's plenty for Mason to work with here at the moment. Blackburn had a couple of set-piece chances near the end, but I don't think they can complain too much about the scoreline here. It's one of those where I don't feel like I'm taking a huge amount away in terms of re-rating or understanding the level of West Brom or of Blackburn after this. I think this is broadly the result that you might have expected and came about in broadly the manner that you might have expected. Furlong getting a late red card means that they won't have his trebuchet for Wrexham away, which is a shame. Next up. George.
Yes.
Rob Edwards, winning start, Borough manager, 1-0 against Swans.
Oh, this was a pretty bleak game of football, won by a set piece. So many set piece goals this weekend.
Yeah.
It was weird. I messaged you, I think, at the beginning of my League One research, having already done the Championship, saying, was every goal scored last weekend a set piece goal?
Yeah.
And then it just carried on. And I thought, I'm not going to be boring and send it to you again.
Great message. I ghosted you, didn't reply.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. You didn't reply to any of my messages all day yesterday.
No, I wanted to have a day off Elek. And I hope that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's not. It's more of a me thing than a you thing.
No, I'd rather you just didn't say it on air.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Makes people think I'm annoying now. Dale Fry, yes, scoring just after half time. There were 9 shots total in this game. 3 of them were from Swansea. I'm not going to make any sweeping judgments on Borough, who looked functional without impressing too much. Morgan Whittaker looked back to his livelier self, is one thing I would say. Really concerned by Swansea's performance here.
Okay, you're quite excited for them pre-season as well.
Well, I think that's why. I think I came in thinking they were going to be really strong and quite fun. I was excited to see if they kind of maintain the style of play that we're used to seeing from Swansea. Not really. 289 passes completed within the game. I was excited to see Ethan Galbraith occupy the kind of central midfield role in the 4-3-3 that we anticipated. Nope, he played on the left of the three with Jay Fulton playing at the base of midfield. So it's a very, very different player, and it's not a huge surprise to me that they struggled to kind of play through the lines. But Galbraith was hooked with half an hour or so to go of the game. I was excited to see Vipotnik in his second season lead the line, but it was Cullen who was played there who kind of struggled to make any impact whatsoever. Don't know. It was just a pretty disappointing performance where I'm not really sure what the setup was, and there weren't really any positives to take from it. Now, what I would say is that I felt that way about Exeter in their first away game last weekend, away from home, where they just struggled to kind of make any impact whatsoever in the game. And spoiler alert, they were fantastic on Saturday. So, sometimes I guess a bad performance can lead to good things and changes and whatever else, but in the Championship, there was probably one team I would take away from the weekend and think, ooh, that's a red flag. I've got to keep an eye on that. It was probably Swans.
Yeah, home games against Sheffield United and Watford up next. Give them an opportunity to make it right in front of their fans, and then they've got Wednesday away after that. There were 2 draws as well in the Championship. QPR 1, Preston 1. Sort of felt about right. And this, I'm going to start with a public service announcement. Karamoko Dembele, new first name. Caddy. Yeah, Kader or Caddy. He was the man that prompted QPR's opening goal, an own goal from Ben Whiteman. Not much he could have done about it. And then one of our favourite goals of the weekend was Daniel Leverson plucking a set piece out of the air and launching a sort of sidewinder down the pitch, misjudged by the defender, judged by Osmajic, sprinting in behind, finishing absolutely deliciously. Sort of on the bounce, kind of outside of the foot, flicked over the goalkeeper. Beautiful, beautiful goal. And Coventry 0, Hull 0 was a match that happened pretty similar from a Coventry standpoint to a few of their games towards the end of last season. Lots of play down the sides, lots of crossing opportunities, and then either poor crosses or poor composure and finishing from those in the middle. And the longer the game went on, the more confident I was that Hull were going to get something from it. And they did pretty well defensively. Charlie Hughes in particular, who's been linked to a couple of clubs, including Coventry, was a rock at the back. And they had some rare forays forward on the break where they had some pretty good openings as well. Slater in particular was pretty wasteful when well placed a couple of times. I'm really excited about the Joe Gelhardt signing for Hull. He's a player that I have earmarked for a real, set to fly this season, Gelhardt. And I think for Hull to get him back will be absolutely massive for them.